At 50 degrees below zero, a man's breath does not drift away. It falls. It crystallizes in the air in front of his face and drops to the frozen ground like fine glass dust. And he can hear it land. Herders on the Mongolian steppe knew that sound, and hearing it meant the cold had crossed out of harsh and into lethal. So how do you survive a place where the air itself is trying to kill you? At that temperature, metal turns brittle and shatters under a hammer. Oil thickens into paste. Exposed skin begins to die in minutes, not hours, and the steppe gives you nothing to fight back with. No forest, no firewood, no stone, no permanent shelter of any kind. Only open ground, running to the horizon in every direction, and wind coming down off Siberia with nothing to slow it for 1,000 miles. And yet for more than 800 years, no winter ever erased them. Families lived through this, generation after generation, with wool, animals, and knowledge. Everything they built, every wall, every fire, every decision about where to stop walking existed to win 3 degrees. 3 degrees sounds like nothing. By the end of this, you'll understand why 3 degrees was the whole distance between living and dying, and it started before a single shelter went up. An old woman would pull off her glove, kneel, and press her bare palm flat against the frozen ground. 10 seconds, sometimes 20. No one spoke while she did it. Then she would nod, and only then did the poles come off the carts. Her grandson watched her do this every winter of his childhood, and never asked what she was listening for. It would take him 40 years to understand. The steppe is wider than Western Europe, and almost none of it is on your side. No trees to break the wind, no ridges to hide behind. So the air pouring down from Siberia arrives at full strength and stays that way. It doesn't blow, it cuts. And every few years the land delivers something worse, the dzud, a winter where deep snow freezes into a lid over the grass and seals the food away. This is not ancient history. In the winter of 2009 into 2010, a dzud killed around 8 million animals in Mongolia, close to a fifth of everything alive in the country, in a matter of months. The threat never left. It only waited. So survival started with a question that sounds simple, and isn't. Where do you stop? To an outsider, the land looks blank, one white field repeating forever. To a herder, it reads like a page. A shallow dip means less wind at ground level. A line of rock means a storm breaks before it reaches you. Above all, they looked for the southern face, the side that turns toward the sun, and they called it finding the shadow of the mountain. Chosen right, that ground ran about 3 degrees warmer, and 3 degrees decided whether snow stayed soft enough to dig through, or set like concrete over the grass. Then the harder question when to move. Leave early, and the herd loses its last weeks of fattening. Leave late and snow closes the roots behind you in hours. They had no instruments. They read the animals. When the horses turned their backs to one direction and stood still, winter was coming. And on the coldest nights, they brought something inside the tent that no modern engineer would ever think of. A single tent on open steppe is a body standing naked in the wind. However well it's built, the air wraps around it and pulls the warmth out from every side at once. So the Mongols stopped trying to strengthen one structure and started thinking about how structures work together. They set their tents in a ring, a formation called a kuri, and it was never decoration. It was aerodynamics practiced by an entire community, because the cold that kills you doesn't fall from above. It crawls along the ground, a low horizontal current stripping heat from everything it touches. A ring of walls forces that current upward, over the camp instead of through it. Inside the circle, something measurable happens. Wind speed drops. Snow settles in different places. A microclimate forms invisible, but real enough to save lives. And at the center of that circle, they put the thing the whole system was built around. Not the fire, the herd. Hundreds of animals pressed together through the night, each one giving off almost nothing alone, but together lifting the temperature around them by as much as 10 degrees. No fuel, no flame. Heat made out of nothing but life. The people sheltered the animals from the wind. The animals gave the people back their warmth. That is not livestock management. That is a contract. And if either side failed to hold it, both sides died in the same week. And every door in that ring faced south. Every tent, every generation. No one argued about it, because a door turned the wrong way didn't just let in a draft, it let in the wind that could empty a family in a single night. Step inside. The round shape isn't style, Its function: there are no sharp corners for wind to grab, so the air slides around the outside instead of pushing against it, and the domed roof spreads the weight of heavy snow evenly across the frame instead of loading it onto one beam. The walls are felt, wool crushed until the fibers lock together and trap millions of tiny pockets of air. Still air is one of the best insulators nature makes, and in a hard winter they stacked that felt up to 12 layers deep, 50 below outside, and the inside runs 30 to 40 degrees warmer, still cold, but no longer killing anyone. At the center burns a fire with no wood in it. There are no trees out here, so the fuel comes from the animals themselves, dung, collected, dried, and cured in open air until it burns hot, clean, and steady. In a land with no forest, nothing is waste. What the herd leaves behind becomes the heat that keeps the family alive. Above the fire sits a round opening in the crown of the tent, the tonneau. Hot air rises and escapes through it, and that draws fresh air in through the gaps near the floor, a convection cycle running all night with no moving parts. Without it, carbon monoxide, colourless and odourless, could take a sleeping family before anyone woke, and on the coldest nights, this is what they carried inside. Newborn animals, laid down beside the sleeping mats, not out of tenderness but out of arithmetic, because each small body gives off heat until morning. Nobody undressed. Children slept in the middle. The oldest slept nearest the fire. Where you lay down in a Mongolian tent was a heat map. Now, add it up. 3 degrees from the ground you chose, a few more from the circle, 10 from the herd, 30 from the felt. Not one of those saves you. Survival here was never one big answer. It was dozens of small ones stacked on top of each other, 3 degrees at a time, until it was finally enough to see the morning. So what was the old woman feeling for, down there on the frozen ground? Moisture. Nothing more than the dampness in the top layer of soil. But damp ground meant snow had already melted once and refrozen. And refrozen snow means ice, and ice means a sealed lid over the grass. She wasn't testing the dirt under her palm. She was reading February, 3 months before it arrived, and deciding whether her family's animals would still be alive when it came. Nobody taught her that in words. She learned it from her mother's hands, and her mother learned it from hers. Their library was made of hands. So how did they survive a place where the air itself was trying to kill them? Not by fighting it, not by forcing it, not by outbuilding it with stone and permanence. They survived by understanding it so completely that they could live inside it. Their homes came down at sunrise and stood again by nightfall. Nothing fixed, nothing wasted, nothing left behind, but knowledge. Hundreds of thousands of Mongolians still live this way, but the Dzud comes more often now, and every bad winter pushes a few more families off the grassland and into the tent districts ringing the capital, where the felt still goes up but the herd is gone. Knowledge doesn't disappear because people forget it. It disappears because there's no longer anyone who needs it. So what else did we learn once and quietly put down? How many systems like this one are vanishing right now, before we've understood what they were? This is one story out of many. Subscribe and come further into the forgotten engineering of survival.